Hi everyone, my name is Dennis and I am introducing the first Zero Waste Session 1 of Zero Waste Youth in Action. Welcome. We'll be speaking from 2 to 4:30 p.m. India time, and good morning and good evening to everyone else. And we'll go ahead and introduce the speakers. Hi everyone, my name is Dennis and I am introducing the first Zero Waste Session 1 of Zero Waste Youth in Action. Welcome. We'll be speaking from 2 to 4:30 p.m. India time, and good morning and good evening to everyone else. And we'll go ahead and introduce the speakers. Hi everyone. So as we know, not only am I a moderator for this panel, but I am also a presenter. So I will be talking about the Zero Waste Youth Global Movements. I've been involved with the Zero Waste Youth USA since 2017, and provide technical assistance, outreach, and education to stakeholders such as public agencies, universities, schools, and businesses. And without further ado, here is my presentation. Moving on to our next speaker, we'll be introducing Tara Bening Sandrina, who is 18 years old and is captain of the River Warrior program in Indonesia and East Java. And she has been studying the effects of microplastic pollution in the Berantas River and how they build awareness by using Instagram and through different campaigns. And so now we'll hear more about her presentation. Thank you so much. Please join me in welcoming Tara Bening Sandrina. And now moving on to our next speaker, we have Nicholas Paliat Vinod, who is one of the founding members of the youth volunteer network in Trivandrum, India, called Green Army International. Green Army focuses on imparting concepts of zero waste, climate action, and other sustainable practices in an urban landscape to school children. He is currently pursuing a master's in environmental systems engineering and management at Memorial University of Newfoundland, Canada. He is part of a zero waste action team of social justice cooperative Newfoundland and Labrador, and continues to mentor volunteers of Green Army in Kerala. Please welcome Nicholas Paliat Vinod. And now, moving on to the next presentation, we have Wagdi Wagi, who is an environmental expert with an engineering background and has led tours of his hometown of Mokatam, a district in Cairo known as Garbage City. It is one of the poorest neighborhoods in Cairo that has created a small, functioning, informal economy based on collecting garbage and recycling it. He has used his design thinking to provide 50 solar water heaters and more than 70 biogas systems for the neighborhood. Please welcome Wagdi Wagi. Thank you for that presentation. Now we will move on to Amanina Shofri, who will talk about composting in Brunei. Amanina is a project manager in Brunei, 7,736 miles or 12,456 kilometers away from her alma mater of UC Berkeley, where she served as the university's first environmental justice coordinator. She has helped to launch campaigns such as #environmentalism so white in a student activism group that helped bring environmental justice to the forefront of community awareness. And she is always working to challenge the current narrative of environmentalism to seek for systemic change. Right now, she is the project lead at CIC Environmental Services for Brunei's first industrial composting facility. She continued to grow Brunei's environmental industry. Please welcome Amanina Shofri. Hello, everybody. My name is Dennis, and I am with Zero Waste Youth USA, and I'm here to present about Zero Waste Youth global movements with the Water and Waste Management Conference. And so a little bit about what this is. So this is a picture of our own conference that we've been having on a yearly basis. And I want to first begin by talking about a little bit of background about why zero waste is important. And then I'll talk a little bit about the movements that have been formed and the history of them. And I'll follow up with the types of events that we have and why having youth um, in zero waste is really important. So let's begin by talking about how zero waste tells us about the world. So this is a global map of the 5 major oceans, and there are gyres in each of them. And what got me involved with zero waste uh, personally was attending beach cleanups in high school. And while I was cleaning up the beach um, of plastic, of styrofoam, and other things like that, I thought I was helping and doing a good thing, but what I didn't recognize was how large the scale of the problem was. And so in each of these oceans and swirling gyres, there's actually a lot of plastic that has been produced. About half of the plastic since the time I was in high school um, that has ever been made has been made since 2005 or so. So that's a lot of plastic. And what we know is that it takes hundreds or even thousands of years for plastic to degrade and other items as well. And it usually doesn't even degrade, it actually photo degrades, so it doesn't biodegrade, it just turns into smaller and smaller pieces. So this is a really big problem. And this isn't the only thing about zero waste in particular, but it's my entryway into how I got involved. And so this is a photo of, an everyday experience that we have. And, there's a lot of grocery items that are wrapped in plastic. And even though it's totally normal now, 50, 60, or 100 years ago, this was not something that had existed prior. And so while this might be a regular everyday thing, in my mind, it's actually a very organized landfill where um, even though all of these things are, for human convenience and benefit, um, what happens afterwards remains to be seen. So here we have a picture of Houston, Texas, um, which is one of the locations where the largest petrochemical complex is in the United States. And the reason why I bring this up is because my focused material, plastic, is made from petrochemicals, from petroleum. And this is a community that is experiencing a lot of pollution as a result of the production and refinement of oil into all kinds of products, whether gasoline or plastic. And I named this because this is part of the design of how these products come into being. And while it's good to have plastic, in my mind, it's not that plastic is a bad material. It's the design of it being used one time and it just having no use after that. It seems somewhat irresponsible. And so this is a diagram that the Story of Stuff project is credited for creating. So while we normally focus on our day-to-day lives and see only the consumption aspect of this linear consumption economy, there's a whole life cycle that's involved with the extraction and then refinement and production and finally disposal of consumption and disposal of the materials waste economy. And so by broadening this scope, we can start to begin to really investigate the causes of how the world came to be, and really begin to question: is this really the best way that we could create this these materials or this economy? And when we do throw them away, what often happens in the United States is we just package it and send it overseas where there's no real systems in place in other countries that for this material to be processed. So it just ends up accumulating and ends up in the oceans. And that does affect humans as well because the phytoplankton and zooplankton, which is the most abundant base uh, life form in the ocean that all the sea life depends on, is actually outnumbered by plastic, in some cases in the Pacific Gyre, by 80 pieces of plastic to one plankton, and counting, because plastic production is projected to increase in the future. And that definitely moves up the food chain and into humans as well. And so, some of the solutions, are talking about, oh, we just need to make them more recyclable. But if we imagine the ocean as a giant bathtub where plastic is flowing into, we can't just keep cleaning it up. We have to turn off the tap. We have to stop plastic from even being produced in this irresponsible way. And some people are talking about like the circular economy, and using things in a kind of circular way rather than a linear economy way. But I'm not going to talk too much more in depth about that. I just wanted to introduce that and how this fits with zero waste youth movements. So the zero waste youth movement actually began in Brazil. It was started by Jessica Sabatini, who is the daughter of Rodrigo Sabatini, who is someone who is very involved in the global zero waste international movement. And what they began to notice is that a lot of the industry was made up of people who were in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, who were of a much older demographic. And so he asked his daughter Jessica to start a youth movement around zero waste youth, because this is a increasing issue. And so they had their first international conference in 2011, and a second one in 2012. And people from the United States zero waste movement had attended that 2012 one and thought, gee, this would be a really great idea to bring back to the United States. And so the first zero waste youth conference began in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so Zero Waste Youth USA is based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and has been had started the first international conference in 2013, and is actually has been the most active of all the regions for every single year since then, all the way up to now. And now the Brazilians had actually helped in 2019 the some Portuguese students organize their own international conference, um, and they began a Zero Waste Youth Portugal chapter as a result of that. And uh, there was another group in Costa Rica that was founded also in 2019. So 2019 was a very great and active year. So I can't speak to all the history of all the different movements, but I can talk a little bit about how I've been involved, because that's what I've seen. And this is the international meeting that happened in 2017 in Florianopolis, Brazil. And on the left, we have a picture of all the organizers, and they organized this whole international conference with a budget of zero dollars, zero reais, and they brought together resources from their university, auditorium spaces, and coordinated this international meeting. And it was a really successful event. And on the picture of the right, we have some people who had done a beach cleanup in Florianopolis. And, I think not only is this a community building activity, but it also kind of speaks to the scope of plastic pollution globally. And so, yeah, moving on, we have another event that was organized by the Post Landfill Action Network, or PLAN, which began in also was founded in 2013, and they focus specifically on college students. And so they had two conferences that were based off of the Zero Waste Youth conferences in 2018 and 2019. And on the right is a picture of all the attendees who were mingling and talking and doing different workshops. And so this is a really important kind of topic. And let's see. So here is the 2019 conference that happened in Cascais, Portugal. And so it was also a very successful conference. And um, after that, this Zero Waste Youth Portugal group actually is the most active on social media and has, I think, something like 3,000 followers. Um, so yeah, and then on in the Zero Waste Youth Costa Rica group that we had helped start in 2019 um, with a high school class. They had activated their own and even created a campaign, a social media campaign, where on the left they said, the world doesn't need a few people doing zero waste perfectly, but millions of people doing it imperfectly. And that's a quote from, I think, Zero Waste Chef, which is a social media campaign. And I just want to underline how a lot of this organization and and communication takes place on social media platforms. So with that said, I'm going to zoom in to what Zero Waste Youth USA, a few examples, has been up to. And on the left, we have a flyer for some of our documentary screenings. And we watched a lot of documentaries. We discuss it and promote them and learn a lot from them. And on the left, we have this uh, documentary, The Story of Plastic, which just came out in the last year. And I recommend everybody look at it because it really goes into depth about what happens to plastic that gets exported from Europe and the United States. And so it's a really informative work. And on the right is a example of an event where we went to recycling facilities to learn firsthand how the waste is processed in the Bay Area. Um, and our keynote event is our Zero Waste Youth Conference that happens on an annual basis. And these are some examples of workshops that happen during the conference. And so we have activism, we have high school students who were hosting a beeswax wrap workshop. So as an alternative to use plastic, you can learn how to make um, a wrap for preserving food out of beeswax. So that was really neat. And on the left, we have Tiara and Young from the Break Free from Plastic movement, who had presented about uh, uh, their work in college campuses throughout the world. And we also had a career panel showing youth what the possible career paths they might have access to, such that they can consider that in their decisions. So one event I also want to talk about is a brand audit. So this is something that we did, which is kind of like a beach cleanup, but instead of the intent of just cleaning up the beach to make it look nice, it's to specifically look at the specific brands that had appeared on the beaches, because while individuals may have littered these items, um, it could also be that they had just washed up ashore or had fallen off of a truck during a collection. Um, and so what we're really pointing towards is not the responsibility of the individual, but also the responsibility of corporations that are producing these materials. So we separated these materials and said, hey, Nestle, is this yours? Hey, Pepsi. Hey, Coca-Cola. Hey, Dasani, Aquafina. Um, we're finding you here, and and we posted it on social media to kind of talk back to them and say, you guys are responsible too for designing these materials to be used only one time. and and then it's up to the municipalities to really take on that burden. And so we're really trying to target that. And for me, on a personal level, during Plastic Free July, I've done my own periodic personal waste audits where I throw all the trash that I've accumulated on the floor, and I separate it into different categories and try to see what can I change in my own behavior such that I could try to reduce and avoid these materials from even um, being in my possession in the first place. So rigid plastics could be reduced. So I could bring my own materials. I could stop eating out, or I could eat out less than I do normally. Um, and the biggest thing is really trying your best. As mentioned earlier, we need a lot more people doing it imperfectly. um, and I want to close with this kind of message that we had from one of our keynotes um, in 2018, Marisela Mares a la Torre, who is a environmental justice activist in Kettleman City, which has a small population of about 1,500 people. And she had brought her son, her daughter, and some youth from Kettleman City to our conference. And for the youth who came, it was their first time out of the rural area where they're from. And she really was talking about how environmental justice and zero waste is really an intergenerational activity, because her mom was one of the first people who was involved in the environmental justice movement in the United States, which um, was trying to not argue, but organize against toxic pollution. So Kettleman City is a small town in Central California that's nearest to a toxic waste facility, and her mom stopped a toxic waste incinerator from being built, but they still have this toxic waste landfill, and she's really describing this as an intergenerational fight. And so we thought that was extremely inspirational. And I just want to close with a quick um, statement that while people like to say like, oh, the youth will save us, I want to say that the youth will not actually save us, that it really takes all of us of all generations alive today to really redesign the future that we want collectively. And by doing that with movements is a good place to start. So thank you so much. Let me know if you have questions. Moving on to our next speaker, we'll be introducing Tara Bening Sandrina, who is 18 years old and is captain of the River Warrior program in Indonesia and East Java. And she has been studying the effects of microplastic pollution in the Berantas River and how they build awareness by using Instagram and through different campaigns. And so now we'll hear more about her presentation. Thank you so much. Please join me in welcoming Tara Bening Sandrina.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of the participants of WWM conference today. Today I'm going to tell you about awareness campaign on plastic pollution in Berantas River. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Tara Bening Sandrina. You can call me Tara. I'm from Indonesia, East Java, and I'm the captain of River Warrior Indonesia, or RIWAI. So, uh, River Warrior is an education and advocacy organization that focus on plastic pollution in Berantas River in Gresik. So, the Berantas River is holding an important role as the second longest river in East Java and the source of drinking water for 5 million people in East Java. And besides that, Brandas River is also a source of livelihood for irrigation and industry materials in East Java. But Brandas River is included in top 20 most polluted river in the world according to Asian Post. So, mismanagement waste in Indonesia reached 61% because our government does not provide waste collection and waste treatment system. So mostly everyone handles their own waste by 47% open burning, 4.2 million tons per year, and 9% leakage into the sea, lakes, and the rivers. The waste management problem that occurs in Indonesia is caused by 5 management waste problems. The first one is the level of local government waste management capacity is still low, and also the index of passiveness of Indonesian society to waste is still low, is so high, 72%. And the increased production of plastic waste is a serious threat to life and the environment, and the roles and responsibilities of producers are not yet an obligation, and because the law enforcement has not run optimally. So this is the pictures of the river and the riverbank condition in East Java. People are used to throwing their household waste into the river. According to the community, it is easier for them to throw their garbage into the river. Eventually, it will disappear. And We did a river tracing and we count the trash dump site along the river. We found 301 trash dump sites along 42 kilometers of Surabaya River. So Surabaya River here is the tributary of Brantas River. And in here we have the audit data that shows the composition of the waste in the river. It is 44% organic waste, 21% diapers, and 60% plastic bags. Another problem is that we're not getting used to sorting our waste. All types of waste that we produce are put together, usually in one big plastic bag and directly thrown it into the river. And about the diapers, many people still believe in the myth of Sulatan. So the myth said if the diaper is burned, the baby will get sick. But if you throw the diapers to the river, the baby will stay calm and feel cool. Which this is a misleading myth because it causing more diapers to be thrown to the river every day. And diapers is also difficult to handle because they're residual waste and they cannot be recycled. They need a special type of waste bin and residual waste bin. And environmental issues, especially plastic pollution, is still not a priority. And our government seems to be passive. They tend to wait for the report, then they wanted to do cleanups or something else. And apart from the government, the plastic producers also plays a role in plastic pollution. From the Ecoton brand audit data 2020, there are top 10 plastic waste polluters in Surabaya River. The number one is Wings Group, Indofood, and Unilever. And they're actually, we know EPR or extended producer responsibility. So the producers are responsible for the product waste they produce, and they can't just keep producing and get profit, but they doesn't want to know about the environmental impact that their produce cost. The producer should pick up their product waste and doing cleanup. So the plastic pollution in the river that caused uh, by the people and also by the producer cause the microplastic pollution in Brantas River. So there's a microplastic research done by Ecoton and Erlang University on October 2018 to March 2019. They collect water sample from 7 locations at Lower Brantas in Surabaya River and found 29 to 300 microplastic particles per 100 liter of water sample. And our river water has contaminated with microplastic, and microplastic is a microplastic pieces less than 5 millimeters, which are dangerous because the microplastic can absorb toxins in the river, such as heavy metals and pesticides. And if they enter the human body, the compounds can accumulate in our body. So microplastic can come from secondary plastic. It is the macroplastic that degrades, but also can came from primary source. It is the industry. So microplastic found in all of the wastewater samples from paper mills in East Java. And besides being the source of microplastic, paper mills in East Java also polluting the environment with imported waste. So there's this village in Mojokerto, it's called Bangun Village, and it is a famous village in 2019 and 2020 because the Bangun Village is the center for dumping imported plastic waste. So this is the condition. The people here call themselves as plastic plastic farmers. Mountains of imported plastic waste are placed in their front yard and empty yard, and they work to sort the imported waste, and then they sell it. They sell it to the plastic recycling factories, and the non-valuable types of imported plastic like scraps, they sell to the tofu factories, and the tofu factory use it as fuel to make tofu. So the paper factories in East Java need raw materials for making paper in form of imported paper. So they are importing from developed countries such as America, Australia, Canada, and European countries. But the paper factory choose the lowest quality, which is cheap. It is called the unsorted waste paper. And uh, we are happy that we have Nina in our team. So this is Nina. Nina is our youngest member in River Warrior. So Nina is sending a letter to the US president and do oration action against imported waste at the US consulate in Surabaya, and she covered in Al Jazeera. And besides that, Nina also sent a letter to the Prime Minister of Australia. She met the Australian ambassador in Jakarta to hand the letter. And she also writes a letter to German Chancellor Angela Merkel and gives a letter to the German ambassador in Jakarta. And besides all of that advocacy, we also do a campaign on change.org. So it's already 431,000 people who signed the petition. And now the condition in Bangun village is a little bit better. Last time we visit the Bangun village, the mountain of imported waste is not there anymore. So back to the plastic waste in the river, we have collected 100 liters of water sample from river with plankton net and count microplastic particles with microscope camera. We also held activities like river cleanups and waste audit. We also do protests here. We do protest to the Wings group. And we also do plastic waste audit and education campaign. And from several activities like this, for me, I can see directly and feel what is happening firsthand. And it also makes me really know what the problem is. And I also feel sad that I drink from this river. The river is dirty with plastic. And will the conditions still be like this in the future? So some of our actions are seeking attention. We calling out the government to do something, calling out the industry to take responsibility on their product. It's fun actually because usually after our actions, we were on cover of newspaper, online news, and on television. This is us. Rewind joint advocacy to plastic waste producer at Wings Group headquarters in Surabaya. And we also, this is our younger members of River Warrior. We don't want to drink water that contains microplastic. So this is a protest, a mermaid protest, protesting about microplastic in the river. And we also do a survey about the perception of plastic community, about the types of plastic waste that should be banned. The result is 99% is agree if there's a regulation that bans single-use plastic in Gresik, and from 194 responses, mostly they think the type of plastic that should be banned first is plastic bags and plastic straws. Next, we also do educational activity in schools by holding plastic exhibition and class-to-class presentation about the dangers and impacts of plastic. We do awareness campaign to reduce plastic waste and demand children's right to clean water and healthy environment. And besides the offline campaign, we also do online campaign now because of the pandemic. We are grateful that we live in a modern era where there are social media and Wi-Fi. Apart from the offline education, we do webinars and we do live Instagram and online education by providing information on social media and collecting petition. And now we will start a podcast too. So the action that we can take as a modern generation, young people, is that we can provide information about the dangers of plastic, and we provide educational content about plastic because information is an influence. So by providing information to a lot of people, we can make an impact. And for the waste management recommendation from National Plastic Action Plan, is to reduce or replace the use of plastic, redesign of plastic products and packaging, and double plastic waste collection, upgrading government and informal or private sector funded collection system, and double our existing recycling capacity to process an additional of recycled plastic per year, and add segregated collection and controlled waste processing facilities to manage an additional 3.3 million tons of plastic waste per year by 2025. This is what we are trying to propose to our government and what we are trying to campaign to the community about this waste management recommendation. And lastly, our advocacy action. An effort that we have done is we sent letters to the Gresik region, the Gresik Office of Environmental and Regional Legislative Assembly about the recommendation about the waste management, and we also push them to make a regulation to have uh, push them to make a regulation to ban single-use plastic. We also have sued the top three biggest plastic polluters industry, which is Indofood, Garuda Food, and the Wings Group. And we also send letter to Surabaya Mayor. This is us. We meet Mayor of Surabaya and give the letter in person. And there's a good news after all of our actions. We have good news such as Gresik Office of Environment managing diapers waste by providing diapers drop box, and the governor of East Java handles diaper waste in Brantas River. And the newest, the lately, is Gresik Regional Legislative Assembly arranged plastic use restriction regulations. So we in River Warrior are happy that after our action, we can see some of changes like this. Now in some village in Gresik, the government provides a diapers drop box so people don't throw the diapers waste in the river. And what I'm excited for now is that soon in Gresik we have a regulation of the plastic use restriction. Yes. And so the role of the government and plastic producer is, of course, very important because providing good waste management services, mobilizing the community, and changing people's behavior with education is very important. But also small action from ourselves, like stop using plastic, is also important. Also important by avoiding using plastic, using straw, stop buying bottled drinking water. It's also bring an effect to our environment, especially if we want to share our knowledge, if we want to share the information that we have to our family, to our friends. It's also bring a good change. So the message is, let's be part of the solution, not part of the pollution. And let's start reduce plastic. Thank you. I'm done with my presentation and continue with Q&A section.
And now moving on to our next speaker, we have Nicholas Paliath Vinod, who is one of the founding members of the youth volunteer network in Trivandrum, India, called Green Army International. Green Army focuses on imparting concepts of zero waste, climate action, and other sustainable practices in an urban landscape to school children. He is currently pursuing a master's in environmental systems engineering and management at Memorial University of Newfoundland, Canada. He is part of a zero waste action team of social justice cooperative Newfoundland and Labrador and continues to mentor volunteers of Green Army in Kerala. Please welcome Nicholas Paliat Vinod.
Hello everyone, my name is Niklesh Paliathinod, and first of all I would like to thank the organizers of Water and Waste Management Conference for giving Green Army an opportunity to share our journey and experiences in Zero Waste Youth in Action. So I'll be just briefly narrating how we began and then how we focus on children, training them, then how we contributed in building a campaign, how Green Army focuses on citizen science and how we try to participate in that, the importance that we give to democratic institutions, our milestone events, and our partners. So in the year 2014, the City Corporation of Thiruvananthapuram decided to go for segregated household waste management system. And when they started campaigning for that, first the elected representatives, the ward councillors, the politicians, they started going from house to house, door to door, asking the residents to segregate at home and to start composting. Well, it had success, but it also had roadblocks. Sometimes the residents are not welcoming of the politicians. They always tend to blame them. Then the officials went, again, the same thing. And when the environmentalists, the NGO, the activists went, again, the residents did not receive them well. But when the students went them, they had a huge reception at the residents. People listened to the children. And in fact, they questioned the motives less. So in the shift of door-to-door campaign, that is how the idea of involving students and especially children in Zero Waste campaign began. As you can see in the image, we have the Finance Minister of State, Dr. Thomas Isaac. We had the then Mayor, Advocate B.K. Prashant of City of Thiruvananthapuram, and the then Standing Committee Chairman of Health and Sanitation, K. Sri Kumar, along with students, officials, and Green Army volunteers. So this shift in door-to-door campaign actually triggered how other stakeholders like volunteer groups, social enterprises, working professionals, college students, and even school students can contribute in the campaign for zero waste systems. Then the corporation, along with other supporting NGOs like Thanal, who was giving technical support to the city corporation in terms of zero waste systems, said, why don't we conduct a summer camp for vacation for school children? And that's how we started. For the summer camps for school children, we focused on thematic presentation of zero waste concept and the lifestyle associated with it, a bit of climate science, but we know they're children and we didn't go way too much, but understanding what causes it and how to mitigate it, and other sustainable practices in an urban landscape. But keep in mind that Kerala has a very high population density, so even though we have villages, technically or in terms of population density, they might not qualify for a village. So we've focused on sustainable practices in an urban landscape. Our target for the camps were high school children. And we emphasized on linking household segregation, how that can facilitate composting, and how that can be an additional nutrition for the soil when you're practicing organic farming. So we focused on establishing that link, and we trained the volunteers from colleges and other youngsters to teach this to school children. So that is where the youth came into action. So a target was school children, and we trained youngsters to teach the school children. And this, the interaction of the camp was not just limited to volunteers. We had eminent resource person teaching children on the basics of what is composting, what is organic farming, what are the effects of climate change in Kerala, and in fact, how does recycling happen? How do they segregate? The people who are hands dipped, who have hands dipped in recycling or segregation came and interacted with the children, trying to let them know how important segregation is. And the camp was just not about classes, it had activities. So all these information, theories, and concepts were imparted to the children through activities. And we made sure that the children went out to the public and they had some experience of community engagement. So one day of the camp was dedicated to reaching out to at least 5 to 10 houses down the lane from the school and telling them what they've learned. And after this camp, we had a huge, the camp was received very well by the students. And this led to the formation of Green Army units. So the city corporation itself asked all the schools to consider starting a Green Army unit, and the city corporation facilitated 10 city units. Additionally, 20 schools started later in that year. Now we have Green Army units even in other districts. Now a school unit of Green Army would consist of 50 students. One mentor would be allotted to every unit to guide the student and to liaison with the activities of Green Army. In fact, the messages of Green Army and the campaign, the messages of zero waste, reached 5,000 students after the launch in 2017. We have the reach the students. Now, how do we build up to a campaign? So the Green Protocol is a guideline to avoid disposable and single-use products at public functions and in daily life. Green Army embraced and participated in the Green Protocol campaign led by the City Corporation of Thiruvananthapuram. Green Protocol was promoted for all public functions in educational institutions, including the schools and colleges, in the daily life of Green Army members. In fact, we asked every Green Army member to become ambassadors of Green Protocol. Now, how do we demonstrate the success of Green Protocol? The city wanted to attempt the huge task of implementing Green Protocol for Artikal Pongala. Now, Artikal Pongala is a world record event. It has the record for the biggest woman congregation to perform a religious ritual simultaneously. Just to give an idea, 3.5 million participated in 2017. So such a huge event, if Green Protocol can be implemented, then it can be implemented anywhere. Civil society organizations offer food for pilgrims who come to perform the Pongala. Now, this is where most of the waste gets generated. Civil society organizations, when they provide food, they used to provide on disposable cutlery, paper plates, they used to give water bottles, they used to give paper cups, and the waste that is generated out of the cooking, they were not always segregated. Now, in 2017, we mobilized around 300 college students to go and meet every food provider, requesting them to follow Green Protocol. And that year, we met more than 300 food providers. By 2019, so this is an every year event. By 2019, the Green Army had a well-detailed campaign strategy which focuses on what to do 1 month before the Pongala, what to do 1 week before the Pongala, where the locations and the route map for the volunteers to go and find out the food providers, and what to do after Pongala. And look at the results. Before the Green Protocol campaign began, 1-day event resulted in more than 350 tons of municipal solid waste, unsegregated. In 2016, it came down to 140. These are approximate figures. In 2017, it came down to 87. In 2018 to 76, and it's still reducing. So this is one of the main success of Green Protocol, and it's an example that volunteers, especially the young volunteers, can make a difference because people are willing to listen to them, and you have all the energy of their youth, and this is something that we could tap on. Another campaign or the momentum that we got was during the Onam celebration. Now, people who know Onam know that it is a festival that is celebrated across religions and across communities in Kerala. A lot of people go out, they celebrate in different ways. They go to public events, they go to stages, they go to performances, they go to fairs. And what we did is that at venues of celebration, we had a small kiosk and we had a plastic arrest. Now, plastic arrest is a process where we collect a small caution deposit for every disposable and single-use plastic item carried by the people who are attending this event. Okay, now this might sound a bit too much. So if a person is coming to attend a fair or to see a performance, and if they're having a carry bag with them, then the volunteer would say, please give us 10 rupees for the carry bag. I'll put a sticker on the carry bag. Now, when you go out through the exit, you show me the sticker, I'll give you back the 10 rupee. Now, this was huge. I mean, we faced a lot of criticism, we faced a lot of anger from the people, but there was huge appreciation as well. I remember that some people who might having a water bottle with them, they would just finish off the water bottle in rage and they throw it in the dustbin. But that was only a very little minority. Most of the people welcomed the idea and they were so eager to show us the sticker while they were going out so that they could collect the 10 rupee back. Now, we had the support of the local police, and this idea was thrown by the city corporation and Green Army volunteers we implemented on the ground. As you can see, even the school students in their uniforms were doing this. Now, this was a huge campaign, and we were able to drive down the message of do not throw away disposables. Try to use them as much as you can. Now, this message was driven down the people every day for 10-day celebrations of Onam. And easily in the capital, one of the main venues would see 50,000 people coming in. Green Army also focused on citizen science. We participated in the global brand audit in 2018, which was led by the Break Free from Plastic movement. The technical guidance on how to do a brand audit, what are the precautions that we had to take, how to manage the waste after that, how to collect the data was given by environmental NGO and public research organization Tunnel. Tunnel is one of the famed environmental organizations in Kerala. Now, the waste collection from around 75 households was facilitated by the city corporation. Now, the students, our Green Army volunteers, we gathered at one place. We sorted out the plastic based on their type. We found out the brands who were responsible for them. We found out the parent company who was indeed, again, responsible for them. And we submitted the results to the mayor. In fact, this idea was even shared to students during the summer camp in 2018. And on the left side of the image, you can see that brands identified by school students high school students during the camp when we were asked them to list down the products that they use at their houses. Even during COVID, we wanted to do the brand audit. So we participated being at homes. We normally volunteers conducted brand audits at their houses. We prepared videos to train them how to do a brand audit, how to upload the data in the website of Trash Blitz, which is given by the Break Free from Plastic movement for the Global Brand Audit 2020. And we created campaign videos asking people to do it. Now we have a larger data collection project which can feed into the extended producer responsibility campaign going on. Green Army had always faced the problems like how do we train the volunteers? So before COVID, we could have mentor camps, we could have training sessions, we could take them to recycling facilities, we could take them to composting facilities. But during the lockdown phase, we resorted to webinar series. We had a structured program of 10 webinars where you had an expert on the subject and a volunteer explaining the subject to Green Army volunteers. Now, this is an opportunity for the volunteer to learn from the expert when they're preparing for the webinar. So you have a presentation which is being made by both the expert and the volunteer. So it is an opportunity. So this ensured that many of the new volunteers could learn what is zero waste, how is it impacting our society, how is climate science related to this, how is it affecting the biodiversity, and what are the problems of plastics, what are the problems of bioplastics. And we even had a session on how do we get these ideas going and how do we contribute to the democratic system by engaging with local self-governments. Yes, Green Army believes that we should work with the governments. We believe that you cannot create a parallel system of organizations or a parallel system. So we always partnered with the local governments, government departments, their projects, their schemes, with officials and educational institutions. So we were not trying to create an uprising. No, we were helping the government organizations to get their message about zero waste systems to the public and through schools. So, and we always pledge support for the zero waste campaign announced by the government. Haritha Kerala Mission in Kerala is the flag bearer for zero waste programs. We also encouraged volunteers to engage with elected representatives. The brand audit results of 2020, we emailed these results to the ministers asking them to have a better extended producer responsibility framework. Yes, we mobilized opinion and comments on the draft Uniform Guideline for Extended Producer Responsibility. So we used the data from citizen science, that is a brand audit, and we asked our elected representatives, the ministers, to have a better framework in place. So we always believed in working with the government institutions so that we can strengthen the system. These are some of the milestone events starting from 2017. It may not cover a whole list, but I'm trying to give you an idea of how we evolved. And some of the pictures are on the right side relating to that. So as I said, 2017, Article Pongala Green Protocol campaign marked the beginning of the Green Army. We had almost 300 plus volunteers that day. And later on, we had the summer camp in 2017, where we had 5 locations. We reached out to 200 school students. Then we have the Onam Green Protocol campaign, the plastic arrest. We reached out to more than 50,000 people. Then we had the Green Congress. Now that is an inter-school event hosted by the City Corporation of Thiruvananthapuram, organized with the help of volunteers of Green Army. Now, it is a venue for school students to express their ideas on zero waste and sustainability. It had photography competitions like the one that you see on the right corner. It had project paper presentations, it had painting competitions, and students could even present what they did in their schools. Then we have the Atil Pongala 2018, the next year. We had Mentors Camp where a set of volunteers were trained in depth on what are the systems of zero waste, how is it linked to farming, how is organic farming important, and how is composting done. Composting is just a process, it can be done in any equipment, and so on. We had the summer camp again in 2018, we had the brand audit in 2018. Then the state of Kerala was struck by almost a 100-year flood in 2018 August, and volunteers came in to help the people. So the city corporation had opened up collection centers for flood relief material. Green Army volunteers, we were there 24/7. We had shifts in the morning, we had shifts in the night. We kept on collecting flood relief material given by the public and along with the city corporation staff. Then we had a team of uh, skilled workers and sanitation staff, which was organized by the city corporation, sent out to flood affected districts for cleaning. Green Army volunteers, we also went along with them. Then we had the Green Congress in 2018, where we invited students from flood affected districts to share their experience and to let us know how you can build resilience towards climate extreme events. In 2019, Battle of Pongale, we had a campaign strategy developed for Green Protocol campaign. We had again mentor training in 2019, summer camp. We again had a flood in August 2019. And in 2020, February, we had the first ever conference, National Conference of Cities for Zero Waste. It was organized by the city corporation, and Green Army volunteers, we were there in organizing it and helping the corporation to conduct it. Finally, the last public event that we had was in March 2020. It was Atil Pongala. By that time, COVID was not spreading in Kerala, but we still, I remember having 3 cases in the whole state. So caution was there, and not many volunteers were asked to come for the event, but our mentors still campaigned during the event. Nothing would have been possible without the help of other organizations. Now, Green Army is just a platform. We have experts in various fields. We have technical experts from Tunnel. We have experts in handling students and teaching things to students by people who volunteer at MAD. MAD is an organization called Make a Difference. They are engaged in teaching children. We had organized representatives and members of Sahurdaya. Again, they were involved in teaching children. We had the volunteers from Index Cycling Embassy who were promoting cycling among students. We had expertise from Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, their technical knowledge. We had social enterprises like Upcycle with us. We had another volunteering organization like Care Others Too. We had another organization in the name of Prakriti. Now, the logos that are listed on the right, they are not, our partners are not limited to them. We partner with all that we can. So everybody is welcome to be part of the Green Army. There's just a platform. We are not registered. It is just a platform where we can come together, and our sole goal is to teach children the concept of zero waste. And through schools, we reach out to the community at large and to the houses. So this is how the Green Army works. And these are, I try to explain our journey through concepts so that people who want to see how they can contribute, what are the areas, how to start, I thought this could help. So thank you from, again, Green Army. And we are very much obliged to the organizers for giving us the opportunity to share our journey. And we'll believe that some of our success could be a bit of motivation for others who want to join. And yes, Green Army has been able to inspire some activities even outside Trivandrum, even outside the state. We have some of our volunteers picking up the concept of Green Army and teaching schools in Uttar Pradesh, and some in the Far East. We even so we have some in Philippines. So the Green Army presented how it's the working in the Zero Waste Cities conference at Bandung, Indonesia. And from there, the participants of the conference wanted to replicate the model, and some of the people in Indonesia and in Philippines are trying to follow our work, and they contribute. So they follow our principles, and they are trying to do zero waste action activities in their own towns. So this is from us. And if you have any questions on how we approached uh, the problem of a campaign, or what led us to the success, or what are the some of the struggles that we met, of course there are a lot of obstacles. So I'm free. I'm free for questioning, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my knowledge. So please do wait, and if you have any questions, you can ask in the panel. Thank you so much for the organizers, and thank you for listening.
And now, moving on to the next presentation, we have Wagdi Wagi, who is an environmental expert with an engineering background and has led tours of his hometown of Mukatam, a district in Cairo known as Garbage City. It is one of the poorest neighborhoods in Cairo that has created a small, functioning, informal economy based on collecting garbage and recycling it. He has used his design thinking to provide 50 solar water heaters and more than 70 biogas systems for the neighborhood. Please welcome Wagdi Wagi.
Hello, my name is Wagdi. I am a solar energy engineer. I had been working at sustainability for the last 10 years. Belonging to Solar Cities Association. We are a group whom working to find like innovative solutions for waste management problems here in Egypt. We involved at a neighborhood. It's named Garbage City Neighborhood. Uh, they are like the biggest market of garbage recycling here in Egypt. I'm gonna tell you everything at the next slides. We are a group of three main persons. The first one whom established Solar Cities Association. His name is Thomas. He's an American professor. He came to Egypt to study urban planning. He studied his PhD at Garbage City neighborhood, and after he finished, he wanted to serve them as they served him at his PhD thesis. So he was searching for a group to help him. He found Hannah, an Egyptian agriculture engineer, and me. I'm a solar energy engineer. And we started together to do something for this neighborhood. I'd like to start with this slide. Nelson Mandela was saying that it always seems impossible until it's done. What I'd like to refer at this slide that this is the same two photos for recycling neighborhood before and after some effort. This effort was an art. This is a calligraphy art. It's like a graffiti with Arabic letters. Whom did that graffiti is an Tunisian French artist. His name El Cid, And this gravity says that anyone who wants to see the sunlight clearly needs to wipe his eye first. Why I mentioned this art at my slide? Because this man worked at recycling neighborhood and he has a very good feedback about the people there. He said that it was one of the most amazing human experiences I have ever had. They are generous, honest, and strong people. They have been given the name of Zabbalin, which means in Arabic, the garbage people, but this is not how they call themselves. They don't live in the garbage as other people call them, but they live from the garbage and not their garbage. This is the whole Cairo or Egypt garbage. They are the ones who clean the city of Cairo. So I'm gonna give you like a little information about this neighborhood. It's slums. How this neighborhood started at 1940. A group of families came from Upper Egypt to the capital to work, and they didn't have a good education, so they started to collect garbage and have money for that collecting. At that time, most of our garbage had been organic waste, so they had pigs to feed them the organic waste. So they collect the garbage and have money from collecting from the people, and they feed the pigs the garbage. After that, they became larger number and they had a lot of pigs. So the government moved them far away from the heart of the capital to very far place. It's named Mukattam Hills, where they are live now. At that time, they struggled at their life. Then they started to try to earn more from the garbage. So this is the only source of money that they have. So they started to recycle our garbage from like 1970 till now. Some analysis say that they can recycle around 90 percentage of Egypt garbage. I usually call them garbage engineers. They can recycle most of our garbage with a very professional way. They recycle each specific material, and now they are very big traders. They export their garbage or their recycled materials to many countries in Africa and the Middle East. Usually they collect the garbage and then resort the garbage to different materials. Then the materials go to this material trader, so like a plastic trader. That trader start to resort the plastic according to the type and the color, so like white soft plastic, hard black plastic. Then they doing processing on the garbage to make it like a pure material again. A lot of people visited this neighborhood, and some of them had a very good, yeah, I think most of them had a very good impression about it. How the people doing great with the waste, how they can manage the waste, how they create like businesses from the waste. This is one writer of BBC, and he said that the Zabalin are thought to be some of the most efficient recyclers in the world, which when I lived with them, I found that really I learned a lot of them. This is why I call them garbage engineers. So let we back to Solar Cities and me. We were searching how to help this neighborhood, and we found that they have a leakage of hot water or electricity and gas. So we like the Solar Cities team were seeking how to help them. But our main concern is to use their materials. As they are engineers with their garbage, we should be engineers with our solution and using their materials. So we searched and we did our analysis how we can find materials for something, and we found that we can build solar water heaters from their materials. We used their materials and we made a lot of systems from this garbage to serve this neighborhood. They were wonderful and they helped us. We made different types of these solar water heaters according to the need. We made in Cairo around 50 systems in this neighborhood and other similar neighborhoods. This is some photos of our installed systems. This is Thomas like shaking hand with the benefit. After that, they had a problem when the swine flu time came. It was like 2011. Why they had a problem? Because I told you that they used to recycle everything at the garbage and feed the organic waste to the pigs. At 2011, the government, the Egyptian government, killed around 300,000 pigs, and most of them had been from this neighborhood. So the people had a great problem at that time, and they, as usual, they are innovative and they try to solve their own problem. They started to have goats, sheep, and cows to feed them the organic waste. But every one of us know that no animal can eat like pigs. Pigs eat everything. We involved it at that time, and we tried to find a good solution for this problem. We got from India the biodigester biogas system. We traveled there and we learned how the wonderful Indians doing that. And we came and we started to use their materials also to create these biodigesters. The idea of the digesters for us is to through like some of the organic waste in it, and they gonna have also a gas for cooking, which is another problem they have beside electricity. They suffer to have gas cylinders to cook. So this is what we try to do there. We install many systems, and also it's like design system according to the need. We installed systems here in Egypt, and after that we went to Africa to build some systems there. uh, I learned about design thinking from a German professor, and I was trying to help the people there to develop the biodigesters according to their needs. So I had a project in another neighborhood. It's named Abu Alian in Cairo. It was like mixing the building sewage system with biogas. It was wonderful experience. I learned a lot, and it's working now. And now Thomas is traveled to many countries to continue his projects. And also Hannah traveled to many countries, and now he's in England and sometime come again and so on. So this is our story. Thanks so much. And if you have any questions about what we do and what I did, please let me know, and I'm gonna be happy to reply that.
Thank you for that presentation. Now we will move on to Amanina Shofri, who will talk about composting in Brunei. Amanina is a project manager in Brunei, 7,736 miles or 12,456 kilometers away from her alma mater of UC Berkeley, where she served as the university's first environmental justice coordinator. She has helped to launch campaigns such as hashtag environmentalism so white in a student activism group that helped bring environmental justice to the forefront of community awareness. And she is always working to challenge the current narrative of environmentalism to seek for systemic change. Right now, she is the project lead at CIC Environmental Services for Brunei's first industrial composting facility. She will continue to grow Brunei's environmental industry. Please welcome Amanina Shofri.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanina Shofri. I'm going to be presenting about composting in Brunei. So first, I would just like to do a short introduction about myself, and then I'll go into an introduction about Brunei. And then I'll talk about waste generation specifically in Brunei and what systems are currently in place to deal with our waste. And then lastly, I'll talk about how composting is one of the many solutions here for the waste problems that Brunei faces. So first, an introduction to myself. I'm currently in Brunei, which is a small country in Southeast Asia, where I work as a project coordinator at a company called CIC Environmental Services. CIC is a waste management company that usually deals with waste from oil and gas industries. However, recently we have started to look into organic waste through a partnership with the government. I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2018 with a major in society and environment, with a concentration on global environmental politics. And during my time in Berkeley, I was part of a lot of environmental organizations, such as the Students of Color Environmental Collective, a group that focused on the experiences of students of color in the environmental field. I was also the first environmental justice associate at the Student Environmental Resource Center on campus. So gathering all of these experiences that I have in Berkeley, it really made my major passion to bring about institutional environmental change in Brunei. The environmental sector in California was very robust, super developed. And when I reflected on the state of Brunei's environmental sector, there was a lot to be done. So that's kind of where my passion is. So next, I'm going to be giving a little bit of introduction to Brunei. So not a lot of people even know where Brunei is. I remember the most frequently asked question during my time in Berkeley was about where Brunei was. And some people thought it was a small town in California. It's not. It's actually a tiny country in Southeast Asia, sandwiched in between two different parts of Malaysia. It's, in terms of size comparison, it's about half of the size of Los Angeles, but with a population of only 400,000 people. Brunei's economy is very dependent on oil and gas. I think around 80% of our GDP comes from the oil and gas industry. We're technically classified as a developing country, and a lot of that has to do with our oil and gas industry. It's made us one of the more wealthier countries in the world, giving us a pretty strong welfare state with free education and health. However, a lot of it is built upon this oil and gas industry. From an environmental standpoint, there are a lot of things that Brunei does or to protect the environment. For example, it's part of the Heart of Borneo initiative, as well as has really strict policies on deforestation. However, in comparison to the environmental sector in other countries, Brunei's environmental scene still has a long way to go. So now I want to talk about waste generation, specifically in Brunei. So you have a little bit of context about me and in Brunei. So this is the next section. 2019 actually marked the highest waste generation recorded in Brunei, with over 250,000 metric tons produced in 2019. That made Brunei one of the highest waste generation countries in the ASEAN region. Most recent figures that we have is that each Bruneian produces 1.15 kilograms of waste per day. And currently, the waste management system that Brunei practices is unfortunately landfilling. So all of this waste goes directly to our national landfill. With the current trends that Brunei has on waste generation, our national landfill is set to reach its full capacity within the next 10 years. So in Brunei, there is no centralized waste management system. There is very minimal segregation practices, and most of the time, the general public and industries dispose everything to their landfill. We do have a few small recycling centers, but they can't take in all of the recyclables in Brunei, just purely because its capacity is small, also because there's no waste segregation that happens in Brunei, so it's hard to really get the kind of volume that they want. In terms of environmental policies, there are a few pollution guidelines, mainly for industrial waste generators, such as the oil and gas industry, which outline kind of emission criteria as well as what's allowed to be released or not. We also have, in terms of on a consumer level, we have no plastic bags at major supermarkets. And in the past year or two, have seen a really rapid increase in the small businesses practicing a culture against plastic. So the use of things like compostable packaging or even charging for the use of plastic has been more and more practiced in a lot of small businesses around Brunei. So in terms of organic waste in Brunei, over 50% of the waste that's generated in Brunei is organic waste. And despite the rise in environmental awareness in Brunei, the institutional policies and facilities to cater for this awareness is either non-existent or very limited in scope. Meaning to say that even though people are more and more aware and doing more environmental deeds, there isn't really the policy to back it up. Take the non-plastic compostable packaging that I was just talking about in the previous slide. Is as great of an initiative as it is, and as much awareness as it provides, without a facility to properly process that compostable material, it will always go to the landfill. And this is a common problem across Brunei, and I'm sure in other countries too, but that a lot of our environmental work is kind of limited to the individual. So as much as using compostable packaging is good, it without a facility or without a recycling facility or a composting facility, that benefit only is on the individual. It makes them feel good, but it doesn't actually result in a systematic change. So as we all know, all waste in Brunei, because there's no segregation, there's no diversion or anything, ends up in the landfill. And as we know, sending waste to the landfill ends up releasing greenhouse gas emissions, polluting water and air, and cuts any potential of having a circular economy. So that's kind of the state of Brunei's waste management system at this current time. Um, so that's kind of where this project that I'm doing comes in. So maybe 9 months ago, the government approached CIC and asked for help on waste management, basically. So the Department of Agriculture came to CIC and told us about some issues they're having about agriculture waste not being disposed of properly and being sent directly to farms and causing high risk of low productivity at the farm. So basically, how CIC kind of combated the solution was proposing a composting facility. And the thing is, composting is not new. It's not a new type of technology or anything like that. But to Brunei, it's very new. We don't have a composting facility. We don't have any sort. We have the only composting we have is very small scale and like maybe at some people's homes or at individual farms who practice it, but not on an industrial scale that can collect industrial amounts of organic waste. So in the past 9 months, I've been working with, or CIC has been working with the government in to produce or to create this composting facility to cater for two main streams of waste. So agriculture waste, but specifically poultry waste from all of the poultry farms in Brunei, and as well as working with the environmental department in our government to collect things like tree cuttings, which is kind of the brown material for composting. So then with these two streams of waste, basically we will set up our composting facility and produce compost. And the past 9 months have been a struggle. Obviously, it's a short timeline to create a facility from scratch, but we are maybe 80% of the way there in terms of the facility development. And a lot of like the work that's been done in the past 9 months has just been awareness. Like people in Brunei are not sure about what compost is. Farmers don't know how to use it in comparison to their normal traditional practices. So a lot of it has been just building awareness and educating the public as well as different stakeholders on what is compost, what are the benefits of it, how it helps us repurpose our waste and not send it to a landfill where it's just like wasted. Whereas repurposing it, then we can have organic compost that is feeding our soils. And yeah, so another thing is that Brunei's soils, like a lot of tropical countries, is very low in nutrients. So something like compost is really helpful in bringing back that soil health. So in terms of like the latest update, I guess, about our project is that we recently were visited by the Legislative Council, which is basically the kind of the equivalent of like a government, like a parliament, I guess, not real for Brunei. They came and visited our site and we gave them a presentation about our facility, what we're doing, what we plan on doing, how much we're going to process and everything. And we showed them all of our equipment, which is a really great thing to see kind of the support on the government end of this facility and what we're trying to do. We hope to start operations in the next month or two to hopefully be able to cater for these waste streams. But yeah, that's kind of the introduction to this project. And there's a long way to go in terms of the environmental sector in Brunei, but we hope that something like this will really support all of the kind of on the ground initiatives that local Bruneians have been doing for the past couple of years. Thank you.